Welcome back to Historical Side Notes. What are you guys doing? You see I'm trying to do an intro here, right?
Yeah, we're getting some candy.
Why do you want candy so much?
Because it's good.
Yeah, Daddy, candy's life.
I guess they got a point. Roll the intro. Okay, today we're going to be featuring Gail Halvorsen, aka the Candy Bomber, aka Uncle Wiggly Wings, aka the guy cooler than Kirk Douglas in the Christmas Chronicles.
Where do you see what happens next?
Seriously, he probably brought more joy to the German kids than Santa Claus himself. Okay, before we get into this, we're going to have to look at some background info just so we have some historical context. This is a map of Nazi-occupied Europe during World War II in its height of 1942. As you can see here, the Nazis controlled almost the entirety of Europe. However, this would not last long, and the Nazis would find themselves in just 2 short years fighting a two-front war. In the Eastern Front, they'd be fighting the Soviet Union, and in the Western Front, they'd be fighting England and the United States after they had launched Operation Overlord, and on June 6, 1944, invaded Normandy Beach, which established a foothold for the Allies to open up a second front, which is known as the Western Front. As the war continued, the Nazis began taking very high casualty rates. Some scholars even speculate that the Nazis had lost 4 to 5 million troops. Okay, fast forward. It's now the spring of 1945 and the final year of the war. The Soviet Union, the United States, and England are all racing into Berlin. And as they liberated the German capital, they found that Hitler had committed suicide and the Nazis were forced to surrender. So that's the end of the story. Thanks for watching. Just kidding. This ushers in one of the greatest rivalries of all time. A rivalry greater than Itchy and Scratchy, Rocky vs. Drago.
He's cut! He's cut! Russians cut!
Bobby and Boris, and even greater than Brendan and Dale.
What's going on?
Okay, this has gone completely off the rails. What I'm getting at here is the greatest rivalry of all time. The United States versus the Soviet Union post-World War II, which was known as the Cold War. It was the ultimate good versus evil, democracy versus dictatorship, capitalism versus communism, individualism versus collectivism, and Christmas versus not having Christmas. The Soviets didn't have Christmas. They abolished it. So both sides don't like each other too much, and they say, what do we do with Germany? The only logical thing to do, split it in half. So this creates the pro-Soviet East Germany and the pro-Western capitalist powers West Germany. To further complicate this, Berlin itself was entirely inside of the East Germany Soviet zone. And since Berlin was the capital of Germany, they also said, you know what, we're going to have to go and divide this up into zones as well. As you can see here in the map, there are 4 different zones, each representative of each of the major powers that were overseeing the areas in Berlin. You had the Soviet side, the American side, French side, and the English side. Okay, follow me here really quick. So the United States has a piece of Berlin, but it is completely encapsulated by the German Democratic Republic, which is East Germany.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
So the Soviets have the bright idea. How about we just try to starve out this little part of the city, and eventually what'll happen is the United States will get tired of it and they'll have to withdraw. So instead of withdrawing or waging war, the United States takes the moral high ground and they go, let's just airlift all these supplies in to keep this part of the city alive. This becomes known as the Berlin Airlift. Now, just for some perspective, these American Air Force pilots in 1945 who conducted large bombing raids throughout Germany are now conducting the largest, most robust aerial resupply of a population the world has ever seen. Our pilots were like, we used to bomb Germany regularly, and now you just want me to deliver cargo to an airport? This is easy work. This is where our main character hits the story, U.S. Air Force pilot Colonel Gail Halvorsen. Colonel Halvorsen was born in October of 1920 and died in February of 2022, which makes him a centenarian, which is remarkable because that means he's lived to be over 100 years old. In those 100 years, he had 30 years of meritorious military service in the Air Force, and the Berlin Airlift would prove to be his shining time. Between June of 1948 and May of 1949, the United States, along with others, saved the West Berliners from starvation. Planes were landing on average every 57 seconds around the clock. Among the goods delivered were coal, gas, wheat, milk, flour, tea, potatoes, as well as seasonal items and medicines. This was totaling over 2 million tons of goods when everything was said and done. They even delivered everybody's favorite, peaches.
Peaches, 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 peaches.
Okay, probably not peaches, but you get the point. Gail Halvorsen becomes a trendsetter. While landing his cargo plane, Gail Halvorsen would actually open the cockpit window and throw out candy with makeshift parachutes to float down to the children below. Naturally, many kids would get word of this and would gather around the airport waiting for Gail Halvorsen. To signal the kids below, Gail Halvorsen would tip the controls left and right to make the wings tip back and forth. And this was the symbol for the kids to get ready because Gail Halvorsen was about to airdrop them some candy. And it was because of this little technique that Gail Halvorsen would earn the nickname Uncle Wiggly Wings. Sometimes he would log more than 16 hours of flight time in one day. When asked how he got the job done, he said through willpower and sometimes a dozen or more cups of coffee.
You need some more coffee?
No more coffee.
Because of this, Gail Halvorsen has my full respect. You got to take care of the kids. He actually delivered Christmas in 1948, I think even a little bit better than Santa. So what's the takeaway here? 1, Gail Halvorsen is an absolute champ. And 2, why do you want candy so much?
Because it's good.
Yeah, Daddy, Henny's life.
Thanks again for watching Historical Side Notes, and I will see you between the pages.